Hello, welcome to the channel. Happy June 26th.
Hi there. Welcome.
Okay. George Costanza will love today's entry.
Do the opposite?
Try the opposite.
Yeah.
Okay. Epictetus says, what assistance can we find in the fight against habit? Try the opposite. What assistance can we find in the fight against habit? Try the opposite.
Try the opposite, yeah.
So if he's saying
it's very simple, but yeah.
Find the fight against habit, he's talking about stopping doing something.
Like a bad habit, yeah.
So let's see.
But also good habit in theory. Like you're doing something, you're trying something that you're trying to come up with a good habit, but it's not working. So he's saying try the opposite or something, maybe in there, you know what I mean? He's like, I can see it going towards positive habits or going towards negative habits. Let's stick with the negative. Just
because he's saying like fight against habit.
Fight against habit, yeah.
So like, let's say that I don't like how much I'm drinking.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so he says, try the opposite. Now what do I do? I don't drink. I put alcohol up my butt.
No, that would be a different opposite. But no, you're just. I think that. Like you like every time I did this, I'm gonna do the opposite, right? So I would say, okay, every day at 5 p.m. I go and I open a beer. So I'm gonna do the opposite. At 5 p.m. I'm not going to open a beer. I'm going to, and maybe you can replace it with something, right? Like, I'm going to open a club soda, or I'm going to have a lemonade or something, you know.
Right. So it seems to me like he's saying, like, have a plan.
Have a plan.
Like you need to think through this.
Of what am I gonna do during those times of when this habit is really, bubbling up and wants it to be fulfilled, right? Like, give me this chocolate, or give me this beer. It's 5:00. I want my beer fix, right? Like that is now that habit is just like, ding, 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 I'm here. Come on, go fill me up, right? And he's saying when that habit is there, go do the opposite. Like, don't go fill it with it. Now, again, don't go like have a beer or not have a beer, right? Like that might be like, well, yeah, that's you're just saying don't drink, right? Yeah, ultimately, that's what this kind of is ultimately helping.
Well, he's saying like you want to make a change in your life.
Yeah.
You don't like these habits, so how do you do that? Like,
and this is like a tool to wrap your mind around. Like, why shouldn't I have a beer today at 5 p.m.? Why shouldn't I have it? Right? Oh,
I mean,
because I want to change it, and every time I say to myself in the morning, oh, I don't want to have a beer at 5 p.m. But 5 p.m. rolls in, and all of a sudden I'm like, okay, I'm gonna only have a beer, right? So that's how I'm saying it. Like when that thing is bubbling up, that's when the change has to happen to something else, a replacement or just nothing. I mean, nothing is a replacement, right? Because you're replacing the beer with nothing. But nothing might be hard because you might then find yourself sitting there saying, oh my God, so what do? I just sit here? I just sit here during this time? Or this is just a waste of time? Like, what am I doing? Right? Like, that's why the plan is good to have, like, what am I going to do when that thing bubbles up? I'm going to not do that, and I'm going to do this instead. And so that's maybe even a better, more refined tool of this,
Sure. Yeah, he's speaking after the point at which you have already made it clear to yourself that you need to make a change. He's like, You've decided this already, but you're still behaving in the old way. So now here's the tool for this moment in the whole story. So like before this even happens,
you have
like
to know
for me with quitting cigarettes, like I don't even like, I mean, I know what tactics I used, but they were so personal to me. But what really changed it was like me like knowing deep in my body that like I don't want to be the kind of person who smokes. I just don't want that in my life anymore. And it became like very, very clear. And then I started making some behavior changes around it. But at that point, it was easier to make those behavioral changes because I was so clear on like, this is stupid. It's like, you know, when you break up with someone who's bad for you and then like 2 weeks later, you're like, why the fuck did I do that to myself for so long? You want to read Ryan?
Let's do it, yeah.
Okay. He says, Viktor Frankl, the brilliant psychologist and Holocaust survivor, cured patients suffering from phobias or neurotic habits using a method he called paradoxical intention. Let's say a patient couldn't sleep. The standard therapy would have been something obvious, like relaxation techniques. Frankl instead encouraged the patient to try not to fall asleep. He found that shifting focus off the problem deflected the patient's obsessive attention away from it and allowed them to eventually sleep normally. Fans of the TV show Seinfeld might remember an episode called The Opposite, where George Costanza magically improves his life by doing the opposite of whatever he'd normally do. If every instinct you have is wrong, Jerry says to him, then the opposite would have to be right. The larger point is that sometimes our instincts or habits get stuck in a bad pattern that pushes us further from our natural, healthy selves. Now, you shouldn't immediately toss out everything in your life. Some stuff is working. You're reading this book. But what if you explored opposites today? What if you broke the pattern?
What if you broke the pattern, yeah.
I find this one to be a little too vague to like, I keep connecting it back to like James Clear's work in habit building and habit kind of breaking down, and I find his work to be so like clear cut in this manner that this is like helpful as part of the collection of daily Stoic ideas, but I'm like
deep dive on how like habits creation and habits elimination.
Yeah.
Those techniques are.
You can't read them in a daily entry.
It's hard to. It's because the do the opposite, right? Like that's like again that's like a Band-Aid on the
it's
thing.
Too loosely interpreted. Like, what are you talking about? What are you actually
talking
about?
What is the opposite of having a beer at 5 p.m.?
Right. And also he's talking, what is...
When am I going to just drink a glass of water and then now I'm going to be somehow satisfied with
this? This is why I was like, I put it up my butt. Like, is that the opposite?
Yeah.
And then he's talking about Viktor Frankl and the patient who can't sleep. And then he's like, well, you can't sleep, so try to think about not falling asleep. Like, I'm having a hard time connecting.
Well, maybe not trying to think, but like try not to go to sleep.
Right,
like,
exactly.
Like until like let's say you might be like, I'm a little tired, I'm gonna lay down and go to sleep, but every time I do that, I'm having a hard time sleeping, right? So the idea is like, no, stay up and keep watching TV until you fall asleep at the TV, and maybe you have something, I don't know.
I don't know if falling asleep at the TV is like...
No, I'm just... This is
part of this, but like... It's like, it's almost... I'm having a hard time connecting that thing back to like the habit thing, because it's like, what, this person has a bad habit of not being able to sleep? Is that what you're saying? And then the opposite of that is like, well, then don't go to sleep? But I don't think that this is quite a good matchup to a habit, because that's not a habit. That's like a physiological issue.
I mean, it might be a habit of like, hey, I keep watching TV till 2 a.m.
I eat late. I look at blue light all fucking day.
I have lights on while I'm
yeah.
watching TV,
Yeah.
or even the TV is the light that essentially keeps waking me.
Yeah. I drink alcohol before bed.
All of that.
I don't exercise. Like, there's all of these things. It's like, okay, like there's a very clear-cut way to help you sleep better. I get it when Viktor Frankl was working with people in like the 1950s, sleep science didn't exist yet. Yeah. So like his thing in context makes sense. I'm just having an issue with like how Ryan pulled it out and then like popped it into today's entry. Like, this will help you. Like, like, thank you very much. And James Clear will help me with my habits.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that's okay, because, and another thing is like, just because this is not connecting with you, this might be someone reading this page might be like this, oh, totally. Wow, yeah, like the Seinfeld thing, like they have that connection here, right? We've perhaps had this connection a bunch of times, right? And it's like, yeah, so all good.
All good. Okay, this one was an interesting one today. Let's see. Do you know what they're talking about? Can you put an example in the comments of like what you think a good habit opposite situation would be? Because I'd love to broaden my perspective on this a little bit. All right, thanks for joining, and we'll see you tomorrow.